all pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. We are live. We are not in France. This is PrimerTime. My name is Michael, and I am a concealed carrier.
I'm Nicholas, and I am an open carrier.
Well, I think we got different state issues to deal with. I'll tell you what, in light of France, I don't care what the law says, because my personal law says do not get shot by jihadis wielding AK-47s.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is that you get a chance to defend yourself, but once in a great while, and the rest of the time it's just you being prepared to not have to do that. So I think the axiom is, people ask you, what do you feel threatened by? And when you're carrying, the answer should be absolutely nothing.
I agree. All right, so let's get people up to speed with what's going on here. Just a few days ago, a mass shooting event happened in one of the largest gun-free zones in the world, the country of France and the city of Paris. It appears that 9 different shooters at this point have killed 128 people, wounded 329, and 99 of those are critical, may not survive their wounds. There were several shooting and explosive locations. This has also snowballed into other fun. Currently, we're just coming off of a Holland versus Germany soccer match that was canceled due to a suspected ambulance full of explosives. So we're in kind of a different world situation now. And looking back at this event in Paris, of course, nobody was armed except for the gunmen and the police that showed up after the fact. This is pretty much the rule that you'll find throughout Europe, is it not?
Well, yeah, so let's break it down like this. Gun laws throughout Europe are different based on the country. There's no European Union specific gun law that relates to how an individual country has to regulate or basically issue licenses for firearms. Every country within the European Union has its own regulations. What the European Union does do is prescribe a method for which an individual can transport those firearms between countries. So you have to have something called a European Union firearms pass in order to take a firearm from one EU nation to another.
Okay, now that's kind of an interesting subject here, because that comes into play with what's been discussed in the news regarding the shooting. Was these guys, the shooters supposedly being from Belgium, ended up in France to do the shooting with no checks at the borders. And I've been to Europe, and I can tell you that I took the Channel Tunnel, and did not get checked going into France. It did not get checked going back into England, even after visiting a duty-free store.
Right. So what you have right there is called the Schengen Agreement. And the Schengen Agreement basically opened borders between the countries of the European Union. This is totally different from the Eurozone Agreement, which is the common currency. So you have countries such as Poland that are a member of the EU, but do not use the euro currency. You can go from Germany into Poland and not have to show any documents at the borders. Likewise, going from a EU nation to a non-EU nation, it's the same thing. It's just dependent upon how the border guards feel that day. For example, if you're going from Italy, France, or Germany into Switzerland, you may or may not have to stop at the border control checkpoint.
Okay, so you definitely have more of a chance of being stopped, say, at the Hudspeth County checkpoint just east of El Paso, which they stop everybody, and that would be along I-10. They stop everybody, and whereas that's traveling within the state of Texas, and in Europe you can go 3 or 4 countries across and not check any.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. And shout out to our good border patrolmen who are out there doing their bit for making sure we have a whole generation of Central Americans coming into the country to vote for Democrats in the upcoming election. So, good job, guys.
Well, and it's kind of an interesting subject right there again. Along to go with the light of the light of this Paris news. Supposedly, the United States is taking in some 10,000 refugees, and 31 governors, the governor of the state of Texas included, has said we are not taking any of these refugees.
Yeah, and I believe that it was the president of the United States has stated that he wishes to import 100,000 of these so-called refugees, and it's interesting. Like I said, everything that is coming out of the office of the president doesn't go anywhere without passing through a social scientist first or a behavioral scientist, and the reason is because everything that man does is calculated to determine whether or not he can get by on doing something with a large segment of the population just being oblivious to it. For example, the mass shooting occurred on Friday in Paris, and at the same time, 5 more detainees from Guantanamo Bay were released to the United Arab Emirates, and it barely made a blip on the radar.
No. There's nothing is. Well, honestly, nothing has made a blip on the radar since the Paris thing. I can tell you right now that CNN is currently wetting themselves in joy. They're absolutely moist with the prospect of any sort of violence or any sort of damage or any sort of turmoil that can come out of this. Wolf Blitzer is positively apoplectic once the news of the explosive-laden ambulance came out this afternoon. It's a show is what it seems like, and a lot of knee-jerk reaction, a lot of feel-good reaction, and we've got a story about a little bit of knee-jerk reaction coming out of the European Union here.
Yeah, so it seems that the response to the latest terrorist attack in Paris, and let's not forget that this is not the first, nor the second, nor the third terrorist attack going into France. The EU, which has its European Union headquarters in Strasbourg, in eastern France, in the Alsace region, they're having some parliament members that are trying to push for a total semi-automatic rifle ban. And some countries, such as Finland, have leaked the information and are going to have their ministers I should say their members of parliament, they call them MPs, they're going to have them vote against such a proposal.
No, once again, we've seen that this is a complete knee-jerk reaction, very similar to the gun legislation that gets proposed in the United States after any sort of incident that happens.
Yeah,
and if
certainly.
we look at the facts of this, it's stated that these shooters in Paris were armed with the quote-unquote full automatic AK-47s. What sort of variant of the AK-47 it is, they haven't specified. It's just good enough that they didn't actually call it a Glock. But it's that's not necessarily an item that's for sale anywhere in Europe. It's similar to the United States, where in the United States, if you have enough money, you could get one after going through some serious, significant legal loopholes and hoops that you have to jump through. Not loopholes, rather, but hoops that you'd have to jump through to get in. I believe the cost of a full automatic registered AK-47 is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000. It's not a cheap item.
Yeah.
And these items are not for sale in the European.
Yeah, and
And
for the most part, they're not. I mean, the style of rifle may be available, but certain configurations are generally banned either by appearance or for function. For example, inside Germany, the AR series rifle that's made by anybody other than HK is illegal to import into the state of Germany based on looks alone, because once again, it is considered to be the misnomer, the grand misnomer of an assault rifle. And that's one of the things that I think, I kind of like to ban that term on our show, and I'd like to replace it with battle rifle, which is what the AR series was designed to be. And same thing as what the AK series or the AKM series, and for all of our good German listeners, the Sturmgewehr 44s, the grandpappy of them all.
yeah,
Those are
and
battle rifles.
these are defined as something that has something larger than a pistol caliber, and has the ability to be select fire.
Correct.
And these are not items that are for sale. And you know, this is just like the United States. The event happens, and they want to ban something based on looks, based on the name, and based on imagination. There's no proof that any of these weapons came through any sort of legal channels.
Right. And like I said again, this is all based on emotions, raw emotions, and fear. And you have the president right now who's trying to convince the bulk of the United States population that we shouldn't act out of fear and say that we're not going to integrate people into society from these areas that are seeking refuge in the United States and that are trying to escape terrorism. Well, the problem is that to be considered a refugee, you really can't be coming from one of these other countries that have issued you a visa. So, like, for example, if an individual has left Afghanistan and has entered Europe through Greece, through a port of entry in Turkey to Greece, or going across, into Italy, and those countries are not conflict zones, but you then have an application for asylum in the United States, I think it's disingenuous. And further,
Right. He should stay in Italy, or he should stay in Greece. He should stay in Europe.
exactly. And
And we are using the pronoun he here, because it does seem that an unusually large percentage of these refugees are single fighting age males.
military aged male, or MAM as we called them in Iraq, anyone between the ages of 15 and 55 who is capable of firing a rifle. That is exactly who is flooding into Europe. And for lack of a better term, this is an invasion. I've spoken to some folks that I know from Germany, and this is their sentiments exactly. The German people are very much a society, a homogenous society for the most part, that enjoy their civil liberties and enjoy their freedoms to walk about their countries. And as a matter of fact, Volksmarching is something that is a very popular pastime. People walk in their gardens in the evening or walk across the fields of a farm. They go out into the forests. And I will tell you that in this last year that Germany has been resettling these large groups of asylum seekers in their country. They've utilized all the former military installations that the United States vacated. In my old haunt, there's over 5,000 of these asylum seekers that have been placed in former U.S. Army, government quarters that we used to set up American families in. And at any one time, I think the largest we had in my former area was 1,600 Americans. They now have 5,000 of these asylum seekers in there. And
That sounds like the place to open up a shawarma shop.
well, get you some falafel and get you some halal goat, and you're going to make a killing over there, pun intended.
Yeah. And speaking of killing, in response to all of this, it looks like France has decided to put on the big boy pants. They're no longer freedom fries. They're back to being French fries. They decided to kick the hell out of some ISIS. And conversely, we look at tonight's events of the Netherlands versus Germany game getting canceled in light of the ambulance full of explosives, which may or may not be there. We got an interesting story about the Dutch military having to say bang bang instead of actually firing practice rounds.
Well, and here you go. And for anybody that hasn't been to Europe, I can tell you Germany versus the Netherlands is one of the largest soccer rivalries on the continent. You could equate Germany versus the Netherlands to, say, Kansas City versus Denver in football. England versus Germany would be like Denver versus Oakland. Um, these are countries that have, very, very long histories with each other. You want to know where the pulse of the nation is in Germany at any one point in time? It's where the German national soccer team is at. That's where people are watching. So yeah, that's a very significant event. Namely because the incident that happened in France, the attacks that happened in France, France was actually playing the German men's team, and one of my friends sent me a text as the attack was happening in the theater that said they could hear the explosions outside of France's national stadium being broadcast over TV. So, for all this going on, this was a coordinated attack. And it's very interesting to hear people say, "Oh, this is more lone wolf kind of stuff," and I have to just sit there and think that, you know what, if you have coordinated attacks, the mere definition of lone wolf doesn't apply. These are inspired attacks. These are coordinated. Whether or not
they're funded. That's the important thing. They're funded. Somebody
certainly.
has to pay for these items. These aren't, well, in terms of overall military operations, these may be cheap. These are still. It probably costs a pretty penny to get yourself an AK-47 in France.
Oh,
Even if you've
certainly.
got the hookup and you've got somebody who's willing to smuggle it for you, this is probably going to charge you.
Well,
A little bit.
here's the thing, and this kind of takes it back to the EU and the country specific firearms laws. Uh, in France, you are not able to own any prior military calibers. So, when you take a look at that long list,
So 7.62 by 39 is not
is
something you
illegal
find at
legal to
Lay
own.
Walmart.
Yeah, is illegal to own, and you will not pick that up in France. 30-06 is not legal to own. 308 is not legal to own. These are, 3040 Krag is not legal to own.
5.56.
Exactly. These are all military calibers, 5.45, 7.7 being Japanese, 8 by 57 is illegal to own. For hunting purposes, you're only shooting 270, you're shooting 243, quite possibly you're shooting 338. That's about it.
Wow. Now, getting back to this story with the Netherlands military saying bang bang.
Welcome to 1996 under President Clinton.
Really, so we've got now a Europe that's suddenly invigorated with self-defense and stamping out terrorism where it sits, and you've got soldiers saying bang bang and making whoosh sounds when they launch rockets. You've had to participate in similar training to this?
Why? Unfortunately, yes, I have. And like I said, during the golden age of the Clinton disdain for the military, we had quite a few opportunities to get out and use our heavy equipment. We started to receive less and less funding after the mid '90s, going into late '90s, and then it got it so bad as to the point where our armor crew members had to dismount from their tanks and walk down their lanes in a group of 4 soldiers, which represents a tank crew, and do things like say, bang bang or whatever it was. And it's funny because as soon as 9/11 happened and the global war on terrorism funds got turned on, We were told to make little hills out of the berms that, served as the backstop for our targets. We got told to turn those into little berms, and that's a lot of ammunition. So yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, we've had to deal with that before.
So this doesn't really figure into the nation's defense quite as strongly. Shouting bang bang. It makes me wonder where all the funds that we disperse to NATO countries, because we basically pay for all the NATO countries. I mean,
Well, we don't pay for the NATO countries. We put more into our national defense than the NATO countries do themselves, and they're mandated to put in 3% of their gross domestic product into their NATO readiness every year. Very few countries do that.
and we put in somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 40% of our
I would
gross
say
national product.
35% of our gross national product is spent on defense. More than a third.
And we're still trying to piss it away on a brand new pistol that sits in the holster 98% of the time.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Or in an arms room, which is even worse.
Right. So,
Because speaking of arms rooms, if you're in Massachusetts, a U.S. Army Reserve armory was broken into and had a undisclosed amount of weapons removed from it.
this is interesting. This is in Worcester, Mass, which is right central to the Boston area, which has already seen its share of tragedy. You know, Boston Strong and the kids hiding in a boat that got shot up by 400 SWAT agents that didn't kill him. The report is saying that from the arsenal there were 6 M4s, 10 pistols, and they don't specify pistols, but this being the military, I'm going to assume that they're going to be M9 Berettas, and 20 unidentified long guns. Now, you or I speaking about long guns, we mean a rifle or a shotgun. This being a National Guard armory, long guns may have...
U.S. Army Reserve.
I'm sorry, U.S. Army Reserve armory. This may have a different meaning, long guns. Could this mean possibly belt-fed weapons?
It could mean, actually, it could mean M2 50 caliber machine guns. It could mean M24 sniper rifles. It could mean, if it's a police unit, it could mean shotguns. That is a wide-ranging quote.
Right, and it's enough to leave a little bit of fear and doubt in people's minds. And it's interesting to note that there were, prior to the incidences in France, there were some National Guard, or the French equivalent of the National Guard, break-ins. Now, the French do not use the AK-47, but there were explosives stolen. And according to the reports by the media, the explosive used in France was a home-brewed explosive called PATP, which is a derivative of hydrogen peroxide, not necessarily a military-grade explosive. So this is just something to be aware of if you're in the Boston area. I know we got a couple listeners and chat people from that area, and fairly certain they're not behind it, but this is just really kind of flies in the face of our government trying to keep people's hands off of firearms at every opportunity. Yet we leave the gun room unlocked at the National Armory, and we give guns to every Syrian in the world and to every Mexican cartel member in the world.
So I've got an interesting take on this. Having been a physical security minded individual and a person who's personally inspected many an arms room over the last 20 years, I can tell you with 100% certainty that this specific incident within the Reserve Center in Massachusetts has to be an inside job. And the reason is this: every single arms room that has anything to do with the Department of Defense is secured by what is called a Joint Security Intrusion Detection System. We call it JSIDS. And this system is a combination of motion detecting, heat detecting, and acoustic sensing as an alarm system goes. And this is hardwired into an installation, or if it's in a reserve center, it has a direct line to the local law enforcement, whereas if a break-in is detected or attempted, the cops are there within minutes. Not even so much as minutes when somebody's breaking into your house. I'm talking cops drop everything to get there. And the only way that device is going to be deactivated without causing any kind of concern among law enforcement is if somebody that understands how to set the code and wait for the protocols to activate and deactivate the system in the correct order. And I can tell you that this isn't just something that somebody left a door open. This is something that people are signed for this equipment, and literally, if it goes missing, they can very well land themselves in the slammer. So
there's procedures on base for once these things have been discovered missing, right? There's no in or out.
Yeah, certainly, and this is one of those things that maybe folks might not know. I mean, you may have in your own home, you may have a system for knowing exactly what rifle goes in what slot in your safe if you choose to own a safe, or by touch and feel. Every single firearm in the United States government inventory is serial numbered, and it is checked meticulously. And here's the thing: if any of those firearms make it into general circulation and happen to be used in the commission of a crime, yeah, the owner or the holder of that firearm is going to go to jail for a very, very, very long time. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to be able to expose the network of persons that contributed to the theft. So, this isn't something that ISIS made its way into Western Massachusetts and broke into. They've cracked the code. No, this is not that.
Okay, so to you, this sounds like somebody who's on the inside got just a little bit greedy and decided that they're going to make some bucks doing something like that.
My personal opinion is that somebody who was getting out of the Massachusetts reserve unit there decided that they were going to get out on a bad conduct discharge, and you know what, go big or stay home. If you're going to go out with a bang.
What do you think the chances of recovery of these weapons are?
I think that the chances of recovery, as long as those as long as those firearms weren't stolen by the ATF, chances of getting them back are pretty good. Because if the ATF were the ones that got in there and
those would be in Mexico.
Those would be in Mexico yesterday.
That's right, Mexico, or being delivered pipeline through Benghazi, it seems.
Yep. So which I feel bad for that armorer who now has a loss of physical accountability of his weapons, and the company commander who is signed for those, because those guys' lives just become a living hell.
Yeah, I would imagine that they're probably doing a little bit of overtime on the paperwork.
It's not only that they're doing overtime on the paperwork. These guys are now being command investigated from a higher headquarters. Likely, U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command is investigating them to determine whether or not they had anything to do with this removal of weapons from a secured area. These are serious charges. I mean, these are felonies. These are send you to federal pound you in the ass prison. This isn't something that you go to Martha Stewart. Hey, I'm going to bake cookies while I'm in there for 6 months.
What sort of penalty is somebody looking at for possessing one of these stolen items?
Having never possessed a stolen firearm in my life,
Good job. Good answer.
I couldn't tell you exactly what the penalty for such thing is. All I know is that it's better to not be in possession of a stolen firearm, especially one that is a government-owned firearm.
I will go you one better, and I will say it's better to not be found in possession of a stolen firearm. Yeah. I agree with that. So, now we've got on the subject of stolen firearms and stolen items, got an interesting item from the world of professional poker, which I do not participate or follow because I'm not necessarily a card playing kind of guy. There appears to be a professional poker player by the name of Dan Bilzerian, and from my little bit of research on the guy, he's kind of the superhero of poker. He's I I say he's probably in his early 30s, and he's living the life. Private jet, 65-room mansion, $100 million a hand poker. He's partying with models in lingerie and Instagramming it,
God
Facebooking
bless
it.
him.
Yeah, yeah, good for him. Especially if you're making $100 million, playing a game of poker, geez, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah,
But
obviously you're not playing poker.
I guess that's it right there. It's those damn lottery tickets. Well, it appears that he had a 911 call from his house, and it was a 911 hang up, and Los Angeles Police Department came in and took possession of this man's firearms, even though that they were secured. And if you read the accounting of what his gun safe is, it's not necessarily a gun safe; it's an armored room, and armored room to the point of where the LAPD had to call in a locksmith to access this safe. Now they took possession of this man's handguns and all of his firearms for safekeeping under somebody may call 911 again and not answer. So we don't know what's going on. So they refused to return his some of his firearms and all of his ammunition. Citing the safety of the children and whatnot again.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This is very reminiscent of the gun grab during Hurricane Katrina by different law enforcement agencies. This is a situation where a break-in was reported at this residence. He has a vault room built into his house where his firearms were stored. And yeah, the police in the situation decided to let themselves in and secure said firearms and ammunition because they were, I think generally they were trying to prevent the loss of these through another break-in. Interesting to note that his gun vault was not breached in the initial break-in attempt. And like you said, they had to go ahead and utilize a locksmith to get in there.
So they could breach it.
Exactly. And then the second thing is that while he's received the bulk of his firearms back, the ammunition is unaccounted for. And the cops are not they're not forthcoming on the location of the ammunition.
And you may look at it and say, well, ammunition is such a small portion of it, but ammunition is, well, number one, it's what makes the gun run, and number two, it's not cheap anymore. Ammunition is quite expensive, and even if he had nothing but cases and cases and cases of Winchester white box, he still put a whole bunch of money into it.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that certain law enforcement agencies are hoping to alleviate some of their ammo shortfalls by reappropriating personally owned ammunition.
Does this seem like that's what it is to you, like some sort of liberation policy?
I think that those are, these are black rifles, so obviously black ammunition matters, and I think that they're just trying to find a safe space.
A safe space. We need some muscle over here.
Yeah. Anybody want to help me get rid of a reporter?
Yeah. Interesting to see that the hoopla over the safe spaces and complaints about evil Halloween costumes resulting in massive protests kind of like disappeared in the light of the news stories coming out of Paris. But,
well, actually, I would say that it hasn't disappeared because the Black Lives Matter movement has found a way to keep itself relevant, which is to create the hashtag #FParis in response to the terrorist attacks going on last Friday, and I figured it out. We really haven't had a person to take up the mantra of Jesse Jackson in recent years, and this is it. This is the shakedown of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Fast forwarded 30 years. This is exactly the same tactics. Bullying. I'm sure that folks have read the story about Dartmouth.
Cry bullies.
Yeah, and this is the thing. You've got folks who are willing to go ahead and break laws to get their point across, and be disobedient in society when they feel that their views aren't being heard. And whether or not your views are heard or not, it still gives you not the right to infringe on other folks. And the latest incident was in Dartmouth, where students were studying in the library, that a group of these protesters showed up, throwing slurs, cornering students of different nationalities, and mostly Caucasians and whites, and European Americans, since we're using hyphens here today, and forcing them to basically come down on the side of the protesters, and getting them to repeat slogans and such. And it's times like this that I think it's a good thing that those redneck boys in Georgia don't go to Dartmouth, because that would have been a bloodbath.
Yeah, I'm seeing a really big disconnect here between normal, rational Americans who think before they act, and this just emotion-driven, knee-jerk reaction Americans. I mean, really, I'm waiting for the knee-jerk to be an Olympic sport, because we'll take the gold.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to come up with a new Olympics, a new Olympic sport for the next Olympics, I would say the 30-second cry. How many tears can you generate in 30 seconds, or how many hashtag heptathlon can you create? I think that's what we're getting good at, and the sad thing is things like biathlon, which actually involve a shooting sport, are going to go by the wayside.
Yeah, that's been more than studied to where, and in the biathlon they use a 22 caliber rifle, and it's been a lot of places now have biathletes that are training who are forced to use air rifles.
Yeah, and when we say biathletes, we're not talking about individuals who
This
sleep
has
with the other
nothing to
gender.
do with this has nothing to do with any of the Kardashians nor Jenner.
Yeah, go figure. So and that's a sad thing to say, because I guarantee you could go into any public school in the United States and ask people what's a biathlete, and you would not get anybody that says, "Hey, I somebody who operates on skis and can shoot."
Yeah, no, that's not the answer.
And if it is, they're going to give you an answer from San Francisco that says, "Yeah, he gets on skis wearing a tutu, and he's not what he's shooting. You're not going to want to get in the way of."
Yeah, I can see that coming through.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
let's take this back to the firearms portion of the evening. I had a chance this week to put my hands on several copies of an older pistol that's now being reissued by another company, and it's a fairly interesting pistol. The Daewoo Dp51. This is a 9mm pistol that's produced by the Daewoo Corporation, which is now known as S&T Motive. They're based in South Korea. This is an exact copy of what is known as the Daewoo K5, which is the South Korean Army's service pistol. This is a 9mm double stack, 13 round, triple action handgun. Now, we're used to having striker fired handguns or single fired handguns or double action handguns. Triple action is a fairly unique design. It really only pushed forward by Daewoo, and I actually happen to like the design. So we can explain a single action pistol is something that, say, like a 1911 or a Browning high power, something that you'd have to remove from safe and then cock the hammer, and the action of firing the pistol proceeds to chamber and cock the hammer again for subsequent shots. A double action pistol is a pistol where you can pull the trigger that cocks the hammer for you. There's no need for you to actually cock the hammer. Gives you a slightly heavier trigger pull and Some people say a loss in accuracy. Some people will say that it's also got an increase in safety, but that's come to be known as the Wonder Nine. It's pretty much the standard of pistol since let's say since the Smith and Wesson 39 series came out, probably in the late 50s. Um, well, the Daewoo Dp51 has triple action. Now, what the triple action is you can take and you can thumb that hammer back manually, like you were cocking a single action, or even cocking a double action. But then you can push the hammer back forward, and what that gives you is the ability to have a very, very light double action strike. And you go ahead and you pull that trigger back, and it will cock the hammer back just a hair, or to the firing position, and then just a hair's more pressure will discharge the pistol. I personally think they're very, very nice. I think they're quality pistols that just happen to come to the United States market at the wrong time. They were introduced sometime about 1993, and they were really, really good quality pistols. They use a magazine that interchanges with the Smith and Wesson 59 series pistol, so there was quite an infrastructure that they stepped into. But then we come into the weapons ban of 1994,
Yes,
and
yes.
that kind of ruined
The
it for them
assault
because,
weapons ban.
well, and not only the assault weapons ban, but the magazine limit,
Yeah,
because that took that 13-round pistol and turned it into a 10-round pistol. And really, that gave it no significant advantage compared to any of the other 10-round pistols that were on the market. And there wasn't any sort of significant price drop in that. So that pistol sort of withered and died.
right.
And it's really a shame because it was a really, really neat idea. And they made a couple different versions of it. They made the DP51S, which would have been a shorter slide pistol. It would have had a 3.5-inch barrel versus the standard 4-inch barrel. And then they made a DP51C, which also had a short slide, but then it also had a shortened grip, and it took a 12-round magazine, which still also was of the 59 series Smith pattern. Several different importers, two of the main importers being Kimber of Oregon, which is roll marked onto the pistol, which, just like you can say a pony increases the price, this pistol being roll marked Kimber raises the price of it at least $75. People
Certainly,
will pay
yeah.
that for that
You're
Kimber
paying for the
stamp.
name.
And then another of the big importers of this pistol was B West out of Tucson, Tucson, Arizona, which is any Arizona people might recognize the name Jensen's or Arizona Sportsman. They were the importers of those. And, that pistol, they stopped importing them right about 97. And the Korean military still uses it. It's still a frontline pistol today. It's a quality pistol. It is military quality. It's a very good pistol. Fast forward to 2015, and there's a new company called Lionheart Industries, and they've resurrected the DP51. They call theirs the LH9, and it's the exact same pistol, except for it's got some more serrations at the front of the slide now, and it's stamped Lionheart Industries. Otherwise, it's the exact same pistol. I think it comes off of the same line, and it's actually roll marked by Daewoo, or as they're known now, S&T Motive. These are quality pistols. Being a little bit older, you can find some of the Daewoos now at about $300.
That's pretty affordable.
$350. They really are for a seriously a good quality pistol. I give it my endorsement. I think they're really, really good quality pistols. I owned one several years ago, and I kind of kick myself, every once in a while for not having it. I really do like the triple action. That super light double action strike is just a fancy feature that I just think has a lot of room for potential. It could have been used in several other designs. I've not put my hands on one of the new Lionheart industry pistols, but if it follows the path that the previous Daewoos have, I would suspect that they have similar superior metallurgy, superior manufacturing, and superior engineering. They really are a quality handgun. There's no need to run it 500 rounds out of the box to make sure that
It's
all the
broken.
burrs get worn in or it breaks in. No, it's ready to go out of the box. It's a precision instrument.
Yeah.
Um, Currently, Lionheart Industries pushing the LH9 right now for $399 brand new, and that comes with 2 magazines and the plastic box and your lock or whatever other approved items that are needed for sale in your jurisdiction. I'd say that it's really something to look at if you're considering a 9 millimeter pistol. It's not at a break the bank price, and I'd consider its all metal construction to be far superior to probably any other polymer pistol out there. Um, there's not a lot of aftermarket stuff for it, say like fancy grips or add-on items. It does not have a rail or any place to attach any of your accoutrements and charms and all that. It's a service pistol.
It's a very basic.
It's a very basic, yet I really like the triple action. It's really something that has to be experienced. Um, it's unnerving almost to be able to push a hammer forward and
And not
and then
discharge the firearm.
it really and not discharge the firearm, and then to see the hammer fly back with just a bare bit of pressure when it's in that triple action mode to where when it recocks itself. It's pretty nifty, and then it's got a smooth, very very light, crisp drop once you put that extra 2 pounds on the trigger or whatever it is to make that hammer fall.
Yeah, well, and that's one of those things. A $300 pistol is not going to break the bank, and it's going to be reliable for you.
Right, and there's not really a whole lot of quality metal handguns out there in the sub $400 range,
Yeah.
and this is one of them. Now you've had some time in Korea. Did you happen to put your hands on one or see anybody using one of those while you were there?
No, actually, and like I said, in '96 was the last time that I was there that had any interaction with the Rock forces while they had weapons out, and they had Daewoo made all the small arms to include service pistols and their battle rifles. So I haven't had any experience with them lately. Um, but that being said, if you look online, the Koreans have been able to flood the market on the extended capacity magazines and drums for the 5.56 series rifles.
Oh,
So
and for the Glocks as well.
yeah,
Case Guy, which is I believe it's Korean Cartridge Innovations or something along those lines. I've never actually been able to find a company website for them, but they're the people who are bringing in what are considered to be the bargain basement price Glock magazine, and they make them for the Glock 17 and for the I guess the Glock 23. They make the larger uh, double stack pistol magazines in 9 millimeter and 40, 17 and 15 rounds apiece. And then they also make the extended stick magazine. Now, these come in at seriously attractive prices. And I mean, less than $10 for a metal lined Glock magazine.
yeah,
And
and
these, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and not only that, they come out with the 100 round 5.56 drum magazines. So you're able to go from pistols with capacities of 33 rounds or better, and then more than tripling the standard capacity of an AR magazine with the drums.
Well,
So
and it gets better than that because they also make a drum magazine for the 9 millimeter that fits in a Glock, and the drum sits out the butt of the gun, and I believe it holds 50 rounds, and it's supposedly it was designed for use with some AR-15s that were based on the Glock magazine, and it's kind of taken off. It's become a fun range toy, and it's priced at range toy prices. I don't think I'd ever use anything like that for any kind of defense. But that's just another issue from this company. They've really kind of made an impact on the market in the last couple of years, really keeping the price of Glock magazines in check. And as we were speaking earlier to the 1994 gun ban, I owned a Glock at that time, and I remember Glock magazines being $150 for aftermarket non-steel lined magazines that didn't drop free and didn't actually feed all that well.
Right. And
And
it's the same thing that happened after the Sandy Hook madness in terms of the AR magazines that went through the roof.
yeah, but it was a little bit different because these were that was $150 right off the bat at the beginning of the dry period.
Right.
It took a while after Sandy Hook for the prices to kick up. At least 2-3 months, but right in '94, boy, those prices like skyrocketed immediately.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what you've had a chance to do, you happen to be making a purchase about 15 minutes before showtime. And, for anybody that's out there that's building an AR or anything that they want to be able to attach to a Picatinny rail system in terms of sights, I happen to pick up a pair front and rear sights for Magpul's Embus iron sights, and was able to get the set for $69 plus the $7 and change shipping from Brownells. And that's part of their pre-Black Friday sale. So if you haven't completed an AR and you've got a flat top that you need to go ahead and get some sights on, that is a very, very good price for Magpul product that normally runs $35 for the rear sight and up to $59 for the front sight.
Right. I remember those when those first came out. They were running about $179 for the set.
Right. So, like I said, looking at their website right now, they have live pricing, and they've got black, desert tan, which they call dark earth, and gray, all in stock and available for $69.99. And then, like I said, it's depending upon where your zip code is, you're going to be looking at about $7 to $10 shipping.
Well, and it's coming up on Black Friday, and be aware there are going to be some significant price savings opportunities coming up. One of my local big box stores, I happen to get an early look at their Black Friday ad, and that would be Academy. And just like every year, Academy will have the Heritage Arms 22 long rifle single action revolver for $99. And I'll tell you what, if you're one of the first 5 people at the store that gets one, you'll really have a harder time spending a better $100. It's not
It looks like they
necessarily
have
a
a decent Savage on sale as well.
Yeah, they've got a Savage 22 for $199. Something that's very interesting, they've got a DPMS Sportical, which is kind of like a Plinker AR-15. It's chambered at 223. But don't worry, there's plenty of 223 out there. That comes in under $500.
And not only is it under $500, it's coming in without optics, without sights. So it's a good opportunity to do a combo buy. One from Academy and then one from Brownells to get those sights, and go ahead and get yourself ready to shoot.
So looks to be that there's going to be some serious Black Friday savings coming in, and your opportunity to get something there.
Yeah, and on the ammo side of the house, just kind of browsed Palmetto State, and they had the 90 round block of 5.56 ammo for $29.99, breaking it down to about 33 cents a round.
I did see something interesting. Remington has a bucket of bullets to match the golden bullet in 22, which is We used to almost consider that like kind of the gold standard as to whether or not you were getting gouged. But that bucket of bullets was 1,400 rounds of 22 long rifle. And now they have a bucket of 5.56, which is 300 rounds of 5.56 loose pack in a similar bucket. And those were going for $90, which is an incredible deal.
Right. Well, Michael, I think we're getting pretty close to the end, so let's go ahead and hit some firearms safety rules.
All right. So first rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and verify that the weapon is not loaded. You go ahead and remove the magazine, pull the slide back, flip the cylinder open, pull the bolt back, crack the action open. Make sure that there is no bullet in there and you will not reload it upon closing it. Rule number 2 is know what the barrel is pointed at all times. Do not cover anything you do not wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what your target is, know what is beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, truly the most important rule, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you're ready to discharge the weapon. Keep the finger out of the trigger guard until you're ready to pull the trigger. I'd almost like to throw in a 5th rule in light of recent events, and have your weapon and carry it with you.
And make sure that you have ammo for it in the right caliber.
Right. It doesn't work if you just pull it out and yell bang, bang in the Dutch style. But, you cannot improve your firearms lethality by adding harsh words and dirty looks. No, it needs ammunition. So, stock up on that.
Yeah, certainly. And, like I said, it is getting to be that time of the year where deals are going to be coming out. Go to your price aggregators, go to the different sites that you like to, and give a look once a day, because there may be limited time offers that come out. There may be daily deals like what Palmetto State has. Something may catch your eye. And one of those things that a lot of people don't remember to buy, we talk about cleaning and maintenance. For those of you that have AR series rifles, do not forget to buy yourself some lubricant, some CLP, to go ahead and assist your bolt with operation within the bolt carrier. That is probably one of the things that people overlook the most and can't figure out why their rifles don't extract, or their bolt carrier has a hard time going back against the buffer and the buffer spring and then coming forward again. So take some time, pick up some liberal tears, and go ahead and get yourself ready to shoot.
I personally like just plain old gear oil.
Yeah, gear oil or CLP or even Lucas oil makes lubricant and protectant.
Oh, yeah, but Lucas oil, that's just expensive.
It's
like
on sale. If you go to Brownells, it's on sale.
I like Lucas products. Boy, it's expensive. I happen to, in some of my older vehicles, I've used some of their high mileage engine treatment, and I've really, really liked that stuff. But
we're at the end, Michael. So thanks, listeners. Give a good shout out to my buddy Chris. Michael, it's good to hear you again.
Nick, it was wonderful. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank UCY.TV for giving us this platform to yell, rant, and say whatever we want to say. Thank you, Jules. You've built a wonderful toy here for us all. Everybody stick around. Wonderful programming coming up tonight. Thank you all.